it's like, even if you don't have a friend like that or a real life person to reference, you do have that book. And so it's this wonderful way of like introducing, like, you know, I mean, what a cool way to have diversity through books, you know?
Yes.
And like build empathy. Because at the end of the day, a more empathetic world is a better world. It's like, you know, it's like, that's the world I want to live in, where we just have more empathy for each other, period.
Welcome to You May Contribute a Verse. I'm Brenna Jennerette, rock climber, mom, and kidlit author of The Law of Birthdays, illustrated by Marina Condra. I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Munkin, dad, kidlit author, and science communicator. This episode is proudly sponsored by Canadian children's book publisher Tealmore Press, where every book supports reforestation. Check out Tealmore's full catalog at tealmorepress.com, including titles like Naked, Fungi Are More Than Mushrooms, and Supermoon. Today's guest is Rushie Ellenwood. I had the pleasure of meeting them at last year's ALA conference, and we had the best time chatting on the pod. We talk all about Portland, of course, the privilege and gratitude they feel for representing LGBTQIA+ kids and how important that is, and praise for all the librarians doing the hard work at the local level, many of whom Rushie got to interact with at ALA. We do a deep dive into why books like Rushie's A Song for Nolan, illustrated by Sally Chen, are so important right now. Make sure to check out this energizing and truly inspiring chat, one of my all-time faves. Here's Rushie's verse. I was gonna say, you look very Portland. Like, that is you are a very Portland look right now.
My dad,
with the flannel,
So
beanie.
my dad, you know, so I'm a pastor's kid, and my wife is a pastor's kid. So my dad, and my dad has come a long way. You know, I didn't have like an easy coming out, but he'll come here, and he's like, he still wears suits sometimes, right? Like he'll go to the senior center in his suit, and I'm just like, dude, that is a move, you know. And he'll see me in my ripped shirt, and he'll be like, are you going to work? And I'm like, yeah, dude, because, like, it's Portland. And so if I went to work in a suit, people would be like, what are you doing? You know? Like, they do trust me with this important financial decision looking like this. Like, I can wear this all year. And just, like, a different variation, you know? Like the Texas tuxedo, that's it. Like, it's just like, what denim do I want?
No, totally. Yeah. And I think if you showed up in a suit, that would garner a lot of mistrust from all the hipsters. They'd be like, you can't drink kombucha in a suit. Right? What are you doing?
Yeah, and it's like, I don't work, I'm on the east side, and so I don't drive a Tesla. You know, I drive a RAV4. Like, that's what you drive. You don't roll up in your, like, Benz, you know? That would just be like, it would, number one, dumb financial move, because how expensive are those cars to work on? And number two, like, not my vibe, you know?
Totally. Or you could also ride a bike. That would also be acceptable. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you could roll up in your bike.
Often that's what I do, like, because it'll be like, oh, you're shopping in Southeast Portland, 2 minutes from my house, and then I roll up on my bike or walk. And I'm just like, how great is this? You know? Yeah. Yeah, it is. And Portland is it's such a city of microboroughs, like New York, you know? Like, people will be like, I don't want to be past 82nd, and I want to be in this little neighborhood. And you're like, it's 14 blocks. So you just, like, circle it on the map. And you're like, this is going to be difficult and easy because it's 14 blocks that you're willing to buy in. Yeah. Right.
I know exactly where you're looking, but also there's, like, 2 houses to choose from.
So take a minute. Let's put on our patience hats, but it will kill it. Yeah, I know.
I've never been to Portland. I don't know if I've admitted that here. I know, I gotta fix that. You're really selling me on it. I've watched all of Portlandia. Yeah. I feel like I've been there.
Let me know if you ever come, because I have so many friends with, like, Airbnbs or, like, little studio apartments that are, like, you know, like, I have pretty good connections for places to stay. I was telling at the ALA, I also became friends with Vicki Johnson. I who wrote Molly's Tuxedo. Vicki Johnson is, I don't know if you've ever talked to Vicki, but oh my gosh, like the Southern drawl, the dimples. I'm just like, I have such a friend crush on Vicki Johnson. Just such a cute, amazing person. But I bought a rainbow cookie to give to Vicki Johnson at the ALA because I'm really introverted and shy, but I was like, that was the one friend I wanted to make, right? Because I'm a dork. So I was like,
sweet.
I was like, I'm going to make this one friend. I'm going to make this writer friend, you know? And so I'm sitting in the hotel because my wife is a therapist and she kicked me out of her hotel room. So I was super grumpy. It was like 7 a.m. I'm like, and then I hear this voice and she's all, excuse me, are you going to the ALA? And I look up and I'm holding my rainbow cookie and I was like, Vicki Johnson! And she jumps like a foot, you know? And I'm like, but anyway, so I'm trying to get Vicki Johnson to come to Portland too, because like Vicki Johnson has also never been to Portland and is single. I'm like, bring those dimples up to Portland. You will be not single in like 2 minutes. Get out.
Like, I'll get you someone. I'll get you someone for each dimple. I got you.
I'm like, you're spending too much time in your writing cabin with all that silver fox. Like, come on out. Get to Portland.
Not even 5 minutes into the recording, and we've already got ads for all your friends who rent out their Airbnbs, and also Vicki. Hit her up.
Vicki Johnson.
I mean, listen. If
also,
you're
against
come on
her
the
will,
show.
this is a singles ad for Vicki Johnson.
I know. Well, I'm sorry, Vicki, but you are adorable, and everyone should know.
Vicki, come on the podcast, and we'll
you
get
guys
your
should
rebuttal.
have Vicki Johnson on the podcast, because oh my gosh, and like what a good friend, just the type of like literary friend you want. Because I'm terrible at social media, terrible at all the things, and Vicki will like send me things and be like huge, and it's like something about my book, and I'm like, what? Like, yeah, just like things that I would totally miss embarrassingly, and Vicki is just like that friend, like the friend we all want. Yeah, such a cool person. Oh my god,
a booster.
So the cookie worked, and like the chance encounter, like you guys are friends.
We're totally friends, and it's cute because you know how I'm not great at tech. I am like a total grandpa, but I like my Vicki Johnson picture. I was like, oh my god, look at me, I'm acting like a millennial. I took an Ussie of me and Vicki, and so on my phone when Vicki and I talk, it's us and that rainbow cookie. In our cute meet. We have the best cute meet.
I love all of that, where you like scared her out of her shoes in the hallway.
I'm sure when you talk to Vicki will be like, Rushie's a lot, but I love them. And yes, because I just like I had a goal,
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Okay, so you both met at ALA. This is one of our rare joint questions. Say more about ALA, the experience. I mean, I've heard about it from Brenna. We've heard about it from Brenna, but for you, Rushie, I mean, you just described yourself as introverted. What did it take for you to make the decision to go to ALA? Was it to promote your book, and what did you get out of it?
Wow, that is a lovely question. It was so easy for me to decide to go because I think that there's this big piece of me that I just like, especially for books supporting the queer community. The librarians are doing such hard work. So for me to just like get over myself and set aside some of my own fears, because that's the whole culture now, is to amplify everyone's fears. And so I was just like, I'm okay. And there were some conversations that I had with Little B, the publisher, about, that like prepping me for sort of some of the negativity that I could experience, as an author, just trying to like make safer spaces for LGBTQ plus kids. So I decided really early on that I was okay with all of that, because for me, I didn't have a lot of queer, I'm an 80s baby. I didn't have a lot of queer rep as a kid, So every single chance like that, I view as the ultimate privilege and opportunity. And I just go into it with like gratitude, like total gratitude. Right. And I honestly was like so overwhelmed with just the sheer positivity and like vibrancy and energy. I came home pumped from the ALA because I didn't really know what I was getting into. I had never gone, and I expected maybe like one or two librarians from like smaller places to sort of be negative about my book, which is about a non-binary child advocating for themselves at a roller skating rink. And instead, librarians in my line, when I was giving out the free books and signing them, were like getting tears in their eyes, telling me how important this was to have books like mine on their shelves. Were telling me this book will be banned in my school library, but I have a personal library and your book will be in it for kids who are in my office because they can't control the books on the shelves. It was honestly, wow. I was so humbled and amazed just by the librarian's hard work. And as a kid, I grew up, without a lot of money. And like, honestly, books and my best friend saved my life. Like I did not have a super easy coming out process. And if I didn't have stories, because even though I didn't have queer rep, right? Like I had Frog and Toad. I didn't know that those guys were like written by a queer author as a kid, but I loved them. And I knew it was kind of a quirky, different story. Or like Christy and the Babysitters Club, people get so like kind of like, oh, this language and you guys are changing everything and non-binary. And it's like, well, no, because when I was a kid, there were Christies and they were called tomboys. And I remember that language being super confusing because I was like, well, my name isn't Tom And everyone's saying, like, I'm a girl, so, like, how does this make any sense? So it's just the reclaiming of language that never really fit or made sense anyway, you know? So it's not that...
Yeah.
It's not a new concept. That's the thing. So it was so... Josh, to get back to your question, like, yeah, it was just... I mean, meeting Vicki, of course, you know, I'm going to go back to Vicki Johnson any chance I can get. But the librarians were just, like... I was just floored. I was amazed. Like, what an amazing community of people. And they're doing such hard work. And they're doing it with joy. How cool is that? Like, isn't it so easy to get depressed? Because I'm a parent, too. I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. And it's like some days just my own practice of, like, breathing and bringing kindness to my own family and my own life in the face of, like, so much noise and sadness and war. And there's so much going on all the time. And we're in an information society now where you can't ignore it. You know? So that practice is like when you meet people who are really in that true practice of, like, gratitude and kindness and joy. And I swear, I was like, all of these librarians had it. They had that twinkle. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Twinkle Town.
Well, if you get to live your life thinking about books and putting books in people's hands, I would probably have that twinkle too. From my perspective, what a dream job. But it doesn't surprise me, given the librarians that I and we have interacted with, that they are the conduits of new information, new perspectives, and new stories into the world. And so, seems natural to me that they would embrace your book.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was super rad. I loved it.
I mean, it was, so I met you because I was there to see Andrew Hackett, who is a friend of ours from the podcast. And, you know, we know him from the writing community. So you guys were on a panel together along with the McLeods, right? They were there as well. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Who are also going to be on the podcast too.
Good. I can't wait.
Yeah. So Darren's going to come on.
Good.
But yeah, so I came up to, you know, chat with Andrew, whatever. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm right here. So I was in the crowd. I was hanging out with another writer friend. He came alone, who wrote Costume for Charlie, which is another sort of coming out, like, you know, non-binary Halloween story, which is amazing.
Cool.
So we were in the crowd. We're both friends with Andrew. That's why we were there. And then we went up to chat with Andrew, and you had been just so articulate and joyful, to use your word, when you were talking about, you know, why you wrote the book and why it's important to you. And it was very inspiring to me. And also, I am also an 80s baby. And so the roller skating theme really spoke to me. And I was like,
totally.
Oh my God, I'm like, maybe Rushie will come on the podcast. And I'm so glad that you're here, because it just, like, talking to you about your book and hearing you talk about the librarians, talk about your book, like, that's the momentum I feel like that, you know, people have right now for these kinds of, like, you know, representation stories and being able to see yourself in the world, you know, like, that's what we need. And so, like, your voice is so important. And I'm so glad that, you know, you came to the panel anyways, even though you're introverted. Like, it was, I am not non-binary, but I am so glad that these stories exist, because, you know, my son's only 7. I don't know what kind of a kid he'll be. This is a story he might need, you know, these are stories that kids need. So anyways, I'm so glad that you came on, because seeing you at ALA for me was really inspiring. And then to circle all the way back to what Josh was asking about, ALA was a lot, and I am an extrovert, and it was still a lot for me. It was like so intense in the best way, but I was also like just so exhausted. But that joy is sort of what kept me going, because everyone was just so psyched, you know, like, for sure, books upon books upon books, like, free stuff all the time. Like,
amazing. I know. And I love, like, talking about your buddy's book, the person you were sitting with at ALA. This also makes me so happy, even though, like, I have an agent, Alex Weiss at Azantian, who's rad, and also will say things like, you know, it's really hard now to get these stories published. Like, apparently now the queer kid picture book space is crowded. And I love this, right? Like, supposedly...
Right, that's a great problem.
Right? I'm like, you know, in theory, like, this should be bad for me, because I love to not be a one-book wonder. But I'm also like, heck yeah! Like, these, like, and that's why, like, during the Harris campaign of this, the crowd's chanting, like, we're finally, like, the Dems are, like, chanting and, like, being, like, loud and waving the flags. I'm like, we're not going back. Because I know this isn't supposed to be, like, wildly political, but it's like, no matter who wins this election, I am not going back. We are not going back. You cannot just say, we're going to only value this one type of person. You know, talk about binary. Like, what a binary way to love your child. If you do X, this is what I grew up with. I had broken attachment going into adulthood that I had to fix. You know, it's like, and my parents are lovely and I get along with them so well. They did the best they could with what they had. You know, this is a parent. You know what a hard job this is, right? Like you can't, it's so hard to critique a job you then have. You're like, wow, what a terrible unpaid job. It's the worst. It's the best, worst job. It's so, so hard. You know, it will like push you in all the best and worst ways. But this binary way of saying to your kid, like, if you do these things, I love you. If you don't do these things, I don't love you. Like, what a condition to put on a kid. And it doesn't have to be fixed either. It's like, Brenna, you saying, like, you don't know what kind of kid your kid will be, but he knows he's, or, you know, I think that I've heard you talk about your kid and you see he, him. Yeah?
Yes, yeah, you're
but
correct.
He knows he's loved. Like, he knows your love is unconditional. I have heard the lengths you have gone to as a parent of, like, bedtimes and all the things. It's like, this kid is saturated in love. And what a great gift to give to your kid. And my kids are the same. It's like, do I think they're going to be like me? They're nothing like me. You know, they're their own humans, and they're totally different from each other. And it's the same sauce. You know, it's like, they have their dad, Ben, who's incredible, and Sarah's Egg. And it's like, they are wildly different kids, you know? But they are loved, and they know that no matter what, their parents have their back. And that's it. And they're going to have fluidity in all these ways. We try things on, you know? We are, like, you know, people are like, oh, you're indoctrinating children. And it's like, well, do you mean the same way that when I go to Fred Meyer and I pick up, like, a picture frame and there's a white couple smiling in their wedding gown? Like, I've been indoctrinated too, you know, to believe that I don't have a right to my own happiness. And I will not subscribe to that indoctrination, that you only can be this one way to be happy. And that is what I think is terrifying to people about queer folks. Because when you really go to pride parades and you go to these places, you realize that people are like, well, how many colors will they add to the flag? And it's like, the more the merrier. You know?
Like, come on over.
Everybody loves a rainbow.
I mean, you know, like, it's for everyone, you know? I mean, it's just that inclusivity and this, like, the rigidity, you know? But I still, like, the boomers in my life, I want to be like, come, let's talk. Like, I'm not just going to be like, oh, you're not getting it, so you're out. But let's talk about some of the things that you're saying that might seem hurtful. Like, you know, because that's the thing too, is when you just want to stay in your lane and you don't want to learn, that is, it's hurtful. You know, it's just like if somebody said to you, I'm gluten-free, and you keep serving them pasta for dinner, or they're celiac, you'd be like, what are you doing? Right? And there's all these ways that we make, or if your kid has a nut allergy, it's like, don't give the kid peanuts, you know? So, no, I'm like, but it's just silly to me.
Heteronormativity is the gluten of the of society.
I mean, it's
just making the wrong conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's this way in which people pick and choose what is important. And I know, like, you could say, well, a peanut allergy is life and death. But listen, if you look at suicide rates of LGBTQ plus kids, this stuff is life and death. And the studies show, like, when you hang out on the Trevor Project and stuff, it is not people's queerness that pushes them towards suicidal thoughts and taking their own lives. It is how they are treated. It is their family accepting them. So, and that, you know, so it's like, yeah, will I, like, go to ALA and, like, deal with my own discomfort all day long? Because if one kid sees themselves in a story that makes them feel validated and okay to exist and, like, be happy, great. As a 44-year-old, brilliant. Like, I can take it. I'm strong. I've been through it, you know?
Especially, you know, if that kid is coming from a family who does not support and accept who they are, and then they found this story. It's like a, you know, like this beacon in the void that's like, no, it's okay. Like, you're okay. Like, it's all right. Like, you can, like, grab onto this thing like a life raft, and we're gonna, like, get through this.
Doesn't understand or doesn't accept, that's one paradigm. Also doesn't know how to socialize things, or doesn't know, you know, for a heteronormative, presumably family like mine and ours is, doesn't know how to properly socialize in the context of the signals that they're getting from other places. So it's important. Yeah. It's important for everybody.
Yeah. And, you know, with this book, A Song for Nolan, one of the coolest, like, the thing that makes me the most happy is when, like, someone who reads it really gets that it's a story about self-advocacy. And the sooner you learn that, to just teach your kids to advocate for themselves and to to find allies. I mean, that's really like, that's what the story is about. And those quiet moments, you know, like there's been some criticism from some of the bigger, you know, like places, the reviewers or whatever, that you're sort of missing these beats and that you don't have an adult or like the omnipresent voice, like describing to you what's happening for Nolan in those wordless moments. But Brett and I, my editor, went over that again and again. And I was just like, you know, sometimes we have to go internal. And I think kids are smart enough to understand emotion, you know, and understand how, like, Nolan falls, right? And so it's like, they're sort of okay with what's happening at the roller rink, but you get hurt. When we're hurt emotionally and then we're hurt physically, something happens. We have these reactions, and sometimes they're really big reactions, big emotional reactions. You see this in your kids, you know? I still have this at my own age of like, I go to a party, I feel a little weird, and I'm just like, I want to go home. I don't want to be here. Yeah. I just want to be in my own house and read a book and curl up and just like, you know, be alone.
Yeah.
So yeah. I still like, I don't know, some people have been like, well, would you have changed anything? Like kind of seeing some of these, you know, negative reviews or what have you. But I still am just like, no, I still love that there's a quietness to it. And it's a place where there's so many conversations that could happen from reading a book like this. Because the other cool thing is, like, Brenna, you mentioned coming out stories. And what's so cool is that what you start to realize is, like, Nolan doesn't come out in this story. It's not about Nolan coming out. Nolan already knows who they are going into this party. And those are the stories that it's like, that is true progress, where it's not about us coming out anymore. We are here, we are out. But it is how we navigate a world that isn't always kind to us, and what you do, and what skills you build. And that is like, and Brett specifically was like, I don't want any bullying in this story. Like, we are not introducing bullying as a concept. That's not even a concept that's on kids' radars. Like, that would be confusing to this generation of children. And we're not introducing the concept. That can happen later. But in these picture book spaces, like, that is not it. That's not the thing. And I love that, you know, because I think in one version, I did have like a kid like pushing Nolan, you know, and Brett was like, oh no, we are not doing this. And sent me this amazing article about that. And I was floored, right? Because I would think I would be conscious of that, but I wasn't. It wasn't on my radar. And now I'm super conscious and aware of it. But it was a cool thing to think about this idea of like, we're trying to show these things, you know, but that's often not kids' experience right now. Like, I know it's my son is 11, and like I was an assistant coach on his basketball team, and there were some non-binary kiddos on that team, and like it's just they're just a kid, you know. There's nobody bats an eye. It's just like, hey, blah blah, he him, blah blah, they them, and it's not a thing. And they just get each other's pronouns like it's not a thing. You know,
it's part of the definition of normal, right? And being as expansive as we know kids are blank slates, and it is indoctrination to suggest that there is any one version of normal. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah,
it seems that I'm in Missouri. That seems a very Portland thing, or a very not Missouri at least thing to suggest that there could be non-binary kids at that age. And also, our kids are the same age, Rushie, 11 and 7 on my end. And so it's a very interesting, in both cases, very interesting inflection point for those ages around self-identity.
Absolutely.
And the position that you fill, not on the basketball team, but the position that you fill in society and in relation to your peers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, like they are, like you said, like so expansive and sort of like nothing, like that kind of stuff doesn't faze my kid. Like, he has always had long hair. He's always liked long hair. His favorite color is pink. So he has a lot of like pink clothes and like sparkly stuff and like rainbows, you know, and like the long hair, right? So most adults are immediately like, oh, does she like blah, blah, blah? Does she like whatever? Which, you know, doesn't faze Finn at all. And really, I mean, it's not a huge deal because he's not bothered by it, but I'll correct them sort of gently and be like, oh yeah, he does like, you know, whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal like that, you know, but he is a boy. But I have never, like, there have been kids who have called him she also, but then when they are told that he's a boy, they're just like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
yeah,
it changes nothing. Like, they have no reaction about it one way or the other, but they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Totally.
Like, but the adults are the ones who are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Right. Like, it's this catastrophic. And
totally.
I'm like,
yeah, who cares?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, you know, going forward, maybe he will be they, them. I don't know. For right now, he's, you know, he, his, you know.
But that's such a cool point about the binary.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the point of the binary. Why should pink be for one section of folks? It's like, pink's a red color. Sparkles are awesome.
Right.
Rainbows, like,
and
this,
rainbows?
and this is the whole thing. It's
totally.
like, if we didn't have such a rigid idea of the binary, it wouldn't, like, there would just be more fluidity for everyone. And so that's where I just think the binary is actually damaging for everyone. This old school way of, like, you know, even when we were kids and you would, like, go into the toy section, I remember being like, where are the G.I. Joes? Because I thought they were cool. And I didn't want a Barbie, you know? Like, I wanted to smash things and, like, ride my BMX bike around. And, like, I didn't want to comb my mullet, man. Like, I was just like, you know, I was like,
Don't put me in a box.
Yeah, like my brother got a Hot Wheels one year. It was the Batman Hot Wheels, you know? Remember when those were cool?
Yes.
And I screamed my head off because, number one, his Hot Wheels was bigger than mine. And number two, mine was pink. And I was like, this is garbage. He gets this Batman. And so my parents returned it. And they got me a bat. And I was like, for my parents, my mom, bless her heart, being like this pastor's wife, letting me adopt the name Rushie, by the way, in the first grade. I had this name.
Wow.
I changed my name in the first grade because I said that my birth name was too girly. And in kindergarten,
that's so great.
In kindergarten, I cried to my mom.
Awareness.
No, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, look at all these things. In kindergarten, I told her I would cry and cry because grilled cheese were my favorite thing on earth. My mom tells me now, you cried and would say, I don't want a girl cheese. I want a boy cheese. At 6.
I love this so much.
And so it's just hilarious. Yeah. And so, and my mom went out and got me the different Hot Wheels. And it's like, she didn't realize how affirming those things were because we were in the church. And like, there was a lot of homophobia. You know, I grew up with a lot of homophobia. It was, you know, my dad cried at the movie Footloose. Like, that's the kind of, like, you know, church he grew up in where you're just like, it's so fundamentalist that dancing is a sin. Yeah. Right. So having a gay kid, it's like, wow. But
that's a big step from just dancing, But
my mom, like, what a rad, like, liberal hippie woman to just be like, you know what? I'm going to get this kid who's calling themselves Rushie, like, because I played basketball all the time, and so I would rush around the court. So I was like, I'm going to be Rushie, you know? And then
I love that.
And then, and then in middle school, when I tried to, like, you know, conform, because this word, you guys are using this word expansive, which I love, because I was talking to this dad in the Midwest who was thinking about moving to Portland because they have a non-binary kid and are concerned about healthcare. And so they're looking at places like Portland to move. And throughout the whole conversation, he kept referring to the kid and saying, you know, gender expansive kids like mine. And I just, like, I was like, I'm sorry. I had to take a beat because it was making me teary, right? Because I had never heard someone say, not gender non-conforming. It just already, you feel like you're doing something wrong. Like you're not conforming. But this idea of being gender expansive, man, and I've never gone back. I don't say GNC anymore. I don't say it. I'm like gender non-conforming. Like, what a boring, but gender expansive?
Yeah,
man,
right?
I'm like, yes.
I've also heard gender fluid, which that one is also really good because it always makes me think of a rainbow, like a fluid, like a water rainbow.
Totally.
So, anyways, but
you don't use that if you have to pee, though.
True.
It's time for this week's book reviews from Josh. Josh's review for this week is for Island Storm, written by Brian Floca and illustrated by Sydney Smith. This one was on the new items shelf and stood out to Josh thanks to Sydney Smith's vivid painterly style. This book is a great example of coming for one thing and staying for another. The art and subject matter are both great, but the surprise hit in this book is the way it portrays sibling relationships, exploring the world, and pushing boundaries in a dangerous and experimental way. Navigating the storm together becomes the framing device for something much deeper: connection, trust, and shared experience. And my review for this week is for VERA La VALIENTE is Scared by Anna Siqueira, illustrated by Teresa Martinez. This fun, vibrant story, with VERA, the plucky MC, at the center, explores what it really means to be brave. Paired with Teresa's active and expressive illustrations, this book is a welcome addition for any kid or adult who feels a little afraid from time to time. Don't forget to get your own reviews and library requests in. It's the #1 way to help an author's sales. And if you want to support the pod, make sure to check out our Linktree at linktree/verseshow to give a community shout out, buy merch, become a patron, or sign up for our newsletter at brennajonerette.com. And now, back to our show.
Can I ask a very heteronormative question?
Of course, Josh.
This is something that I wrestle with, but I don't wrestle with it at bedtime because bedtime's the time for my child to go to sleep. But I presume you must be, as many of us are, familiar with Julian as a Mermaid.
Oh, yes.
It's a picture book. Are you familiar with Touch the Sky? By Steph Lucianovic, which is not a gender-centered. It's a very good book. Steph Lucianovic wrote it. Been on the podcast. Go check it out.
With Learner,
Rushie or anybody else. But the reason that I bring up those in juxtaposition is that I will engage with my 7-year-old with either of those books, one of which presents a short-haired boy character adopting a female presenting identity, and the other, and this is Touch the Sky, the other presents a kid that's closer to Finn, a boy presenting boy named Vern who has long hair. And the experience that I have with those two books and several of others, but those are the ones that come to mind first, is that in the throes of exhaustion at bedtime, my 7-year-old would say, Can you say he instead of she? Or in the case of Touch the Sky, because Vern has long hair, can you say she? Because they have a particular vision for that. And it's something that I wrestle with as someone who wants to be gender encompassing. What is that what we said we were going to use? I want to be gender encompassing.
Yeah.
And it's something that I fight against. I've tried to reinforce, let's go with the vision here. Let's go with presumably the character as they see themselves in this book. But it's hard. It's hard when your kid's got a particular socialization that they experience.
Absolutely. And I think that it's like, yes, talking about the intent of, the author and character, but again, going back to globally, why we make these assumptions. And talking to kids about, Josh, it's better, like, characters are malleable because it's sort of make-believe, right, in stories. But if you have an example of, like, somebody in your life that, is an AMAB, like an assigned male at birth, AMAB. If you
Thank
have
you.
somebody,
I was like,
you're
wait.
welcome,
Okay.
So if you have somebody like that in your world who has long hair, using those examples and talking about assumptions and how we can't assume people's gender based on appearance, that's the heart of it. And undoing all of that training as parents, because it's really those assumptions, right? And those assumptions are based in heteronormative patriarchy. I mean, it leads back to the same stuff. And, capitalism, of us needing to make these, like, snap judgments about people and, So I just, for me, it's just really, and never having it, not in a way that is like, this is the way, but just uncoupling, like, these, like, it's because really it's just these pathways in our brains. And so it's just opening up new pathways in a gentle way, but being a leader, because we are leaders as parents, and saying, realizing, this is this place where my kid has these assumptions that aren't necessarily true. Sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not. So just making sure that, and then if they continue, it's okay, because you are still inputting the information. And at some point, our kids, like, it will make a difference to them, because, they're going to meet someone at some point, maybe not now. And, like, maybe, in the Midwest, like, maybe not as often as me in Portland. Listen, like, at some point they're going to, when we do a good job as parents, if our kids are able, they go and they do other things and they experience life, and they fly away and they do cool stuff on their own, And if they're going out into the world with all of these narrow assumptions, like, they're going to learn the lesson somewhere. And for me, I would rather have it be like, they know, I mean, listen, my wife's a marriage and family therapist, so they talk to Sarah, like, they don't even talk to me about these things, but they know that
you get the stories and she gives the tools, right?
Yeah. And they're just like, they know, they're like, because they use mama and mommy for us. So, and I'm mama. Mm. And so they'll just be like, they'll be like, mama will make it funny, because that's how I deal. Like, I have a lot of anxiety and and trauma. And so it's like but I figured out how to make it funny for myself too, because it's a drag. So with my kids, it's like, let's decompress these assumptions, and then I just have the door open. Like, if they have follow-up questions, but it's not like, I don't bang them over the head with any of it, because it's like, they know, they don't want to hear lectures from us. you know?
Yeah.
It's really just about equipping them to be better humans and to navigate a world that is constantly changing, you know, and to have our brains be flexible.
I want to say, too, just a quick note on Touch the Sky by Steph Lucianovic. So the illustrator is Chris Park. And I know I don't know if Steph told us this or if I read it somewhere, but I know that Chris Park, his kid is a boy with long hair, which is why he made Vern a boy with long hair. And I just love, like, it is this expansion of, like, what is normal and what is not normal. And this is a book that is not even about, it's not about gender. It's not about identity. It's not about any of that. But this is how we're expanding it, like, little by little by little. This is his version of, like, you know, this is him slipping in some representation for his kid. This is a boy with long hair, which, you know, you don't always see that. You know, that's a sort of, like, very nuanced, like, offshoot of, like, okay, he is a boy, but, like, he likes all this stuff that you may consider, you know, to be girl or whatever. But, like, let's break out of that box. Like, it's fine. He can have long hair. He can like rainbows. He can have, you know, whatever. So, like, for my kid, or I don't know if Finn even read that book. He's graduated from picture books now, but I read that book.
Alas.
And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is my kid. Like, this is amazing. Yes, there are boys with long hair who love this stuff. So it's, anyways, I just wanted to make a quick note of that. Like, he put that in there just because he has a kid who, you know, looks like that. So his kid will see himself in that book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's just, it's like, even if you don't have a friend like that or a real life person to reference, you do have that book. And so it's this wonderful way of, like, introducing, like, you know, I mean, what a cool way to have diversity through books, you know?
Yes.
And like, build empathy. Because at the end of the day, a more empathetic world is a better world. It's like, you know, it's like, that's the world I want to live in, where we just have more empathy for each other, period, you know? And, like, not where I'm like, oh, well, Josh, you with, like, some of these heteronormative things. It's like, no, you're, like, your existence and experience is important too, you know? It's just, like, my existence and experience has been underrepresented, and there needs to be more representation than just one singular representation so that the rest of us feel other. You know, it's this collective. It's like bringing us all back together into the human experience, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, and to frame it in publishing terms, we had a recent conversation with Martha Brokenbrough, who is championing the Kidlit for Kamala effort.
Oh, cool.
And and the part of the conversation that this part of our conversation reminds me of is the way that she very eloquently explored the pie concept, especially in relation to publishing. It's easy for white men to feel threatened in general, but within publishing terms, it's easy for white men to feel threatened in terms of, to put it in crass terms, minorities and gays are coming for our publishing contracts, which is obviously the very, very wrong thing to say. But Martha's very well put explanation of that is that it's about a bigger pie, or it's about more pies. It's not about, you know, coming for the proportion of books that are being published in general and having, you know, greater representation. It's more readers need to be reached, and through a greater number of readers who are being represented in books, we are building, you know, Rushie, as you suggest, a more equitable society.
Totally.
It's more also, expansion, right?
It's
bigger pie,
expansive, right?
More pieces.
But this may not be, like, the most popular thing to say, but I don't want men to be left behind. Like, I'm raising a young man, and I've seen these studies that they feel displaced. And I don't want that either. I don't, you know, I believe in, like you're saying, like, we have this cool piece of art in our house that says there is enough for all of us. And I want men to have a revolution. I don't want them to feel discarded, because they're not. Like, I don't look at my kids and, like, you know, my kids have very, you know, they appear very cishet, you know, and Castle, my daughter, I don't look at her and think, like, your voice is more important because it's been marginalized. I'm like, you have a cool voice, and Skylar, my son, is incredible. You know, he wants to be a graphic novelist. He says to us sometimes, like, you know, like, he talks about his own feminism. And yes, he has very feminist parents, but, like, I am so deeply, like, I could probably cry about, like, how proud I am to raise a young man like that, because he's such a cool person. And if we had more men like that in the world, is so life altering, you know, and, like, consent culture, and he has his own agency, you know, he doesn't feel, his voice matters in my family. you know, and he has amazing men in his life too, you know, where like he does it. He has, you know, his dad and his dad's husband are like these incredible folks too. And he has this big gay collective family. And it's like the divorce family without the divorce. And he just like, and like his uncle, you know, is incredible. And he just has all these really cool men and I want him to have that. I will never devalue his masculinity because I want him to have that too. You know, there's all these things in us. Like we have all these things and I want him to feel nurtured in the things that he wants to express. You know, I'm not going to flip to the other side and say like that your masculinity is not welcome. It is. It's welcome. It's welcome at the table. It's just and people are like, well then but it's toxic masculinity where we are putting other people down and we are, you know, dominance and that kind of culture. And you know the difference, you know, it's like I was a little bit of a bully when I was a kid because I was terrified. I was masking. I did not want to be outed. And so I was not always kind and I was not an easy kid to parent because I was terrified of being weird. I didn't want to be that kid. So I didn't come out until my 20s, you know, because I did not want to disappoint my parents and I did not want to be a weirdo. I just wanted to be normal. I really did. I tried to be straight. Mm-mm. I really, really tried. Like I desperately tried and I failed miserably at it, you know? So yeah, I'm sorry. That was like a really long, like man tangent, but I just want to say like, I'm not out here being like, there's only, you know, like we're coming for these jobs. It's like, everyone is welcome at the table. It's just, you have to be kind and you have to be empathetic and own your experience and be, you know, open to other people's. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's just like, again, finding those commonalities. Cause I love how diverse and interesting my friend group is in general. Like I'm not friends with one type of person. I never have been, you know, my best friend growing up was Mormon. She saved my life on her mission. When I came out, my dad basically disowned me, and I called her on her mission, and I said, and you know, I wasn't supposed to have her phone number. Her mom asked me, is this life or death? And I said, yes, it is. I called her in Japan, and I was freaking out. I was shaking and crying, and I was like, I think I'm gay. And she was like, I know you're gay. I've always known. It's fine. And she told me this awesome thing, because she was like, you know, Rushie, you're a panicker. And you're going to panic and you're going to label yourself and you're going to do all these things that are going to create self-harm. So here's my advice. Stay in the question. Don't label yourself.
Dude, how smart is your friend? Oh my gosh.
She ended up being a marriage and family therapist as well. And it's like her dad, who was a Mormon bishop, married me and my wife. So this is like my total surrogate family. And but literally like, and that's why I wanted to have a Chloe in my story, because my Chloe, Amy, I'm not kidding. Like, I don't think I would have made it. I was in LA. I was working for a screenwriter and coming out, you know, separate from my parents, and thought I wanted to be a screenwriter, you know, for a job. But LA was just so harsh. You know, it was like everything kidlit isn't. It was like so fast moving, harsh, like, and it was not a fun place for me to come out. And I ended up I called my mom at one point and just said, you know, I have to come home, and you're either going to accept me and I'm going to make it, or you're not going to accept me, and I don't know how it's all going to go for me. You know? And so my mom was just like, yes, absolutely. Like, come home, regroup. So I did. Yeah. But yeah, friends and having those allies, man, you know, super, super important. And her dad, like, what an amazing feminist. Like, can you imagine? Mormon guy. And same thing. He was like a Mormon Buddhist. Like, I feel so grateful that I stumbled upon that family, because it completely changed my life to have a friend like that. Completely.
Wow.
Shout out to Amy. You said her name was.
Major.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just want to circle back to just to reiterate what you were saying. Like, I love what you said about including men and like whatever your experience is, because your whole point here is that we're not trying to other anybody, including white heterosexual men. We don't want them to also now be like shoved out and then have them be othered and then like flip the scales and then have them be marginalized, and like the whole thing starts all over, right? Then
it's okay.
Then the whole point of all of this is like a moot, but it's like a moot point then, right? Like, what are we even doing if we're going to be like
and then the weird, like the other side of that, like going back to the binary, the other side of that is femme shaming, right? Which I also don't want to do. My daughter is like all into Frozen, loves to wear sparkly dresses, is like the quintessential like baby femme. And I'm like, more power to you, girl. Like, you don't need to wear flannels like me. Like, do you? And the whole point is that we're listening to them. It is driven. I know when Castle wants to wear sparkly dresses that twirl because she loves to dance, that is who she wants to be. It's what, that's what she's trying on right now. And I will not femme shame her because I celebrate feminine folks, like regardless of the gender spectrum. I celebrate these things. I do not, there's no one lane. And for me, it's like people tapping into their own joy. And as parents with these biases, not getting in their way. Get out of the way. Just let folks be themselves and experience joy. And don't be a joy killer.
I like,
that is the title of this episode, okay. I think.
No. I already put the... No, I already put the title of the episode in the recording here.
Vicki Johnson is single?
No, well, it should be now. No, it's grilled cheese. Grilled cheeses. Grilled cheese. Yeah. What we ended up with.
Amazing.
Just want to call out your example with Castle as this.
I love that name, example. By the way.
Yeah.
Sorry. Great name.
How is it spelled? If we're allowed to know that,
it's so we spell it Castle because my name is so weird.
So good
that people mispronounce my name a lot and never quite know how to spell it, and I just didn't realize that. I mean, I was in the first grade, right? And so I wanted both my kids, Skylar and Castle. I wanted them to be spelled fairly easily to pronounce and all that stuff. So yeah.
So and then I want to talk more about the book after this observation, but the example that you give about femme shaming is so it's so well encompasses this gender expansiveness and is contrary to what we were talking about the notion of gender nonconforming. I mean, what she's doing is gender conforming, and that's okay too, and that's creating its own binary, I suppose, when you call out conforming versus non-conforming. As you've said before, it's about creating what's normal or redefining what's normal.
Yeah. And it being self-led, it's cool. I like it when it's just kids can be themselves, and it can be fluid, right? Like if, maybe in the, middle school, she's going to embrace the 90s or whatever trend is cool then, and it's like, great, get it.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. But it's not going to be about me. That's the thing. It's going to be about her. Yeah. It's not my expectations. Yeah. It's like, and trends, and whatever's cool at the time. Get it.
Is it skibbity to wear neon?
Right.
I don't know.
There you go.
All right. For real, book question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about working with... Brett, it's your expression. Can you talk about working with Sally Chen?
Oh,
to the extent that you did?
Yeah. Well, oh Lord, Sally Chen. What an incredible artist. I feel like my entire... This is what happened working with Sally. Because Little B's really amazing about involving me. I definitely saw early versions of what Nolan would look like. And I was sensitive to the fact that I am, white. And so that was Sally, I had selected the character that, was white. And obviously the character is a person of color. And Sally is that to me is so cool, where it's just your illustrator gets to shine, And so I didn't really have these set ideas of what Nolan would look like, and I really just wanted Sally to have the ultimate freedom and creativity to do their thing. And so I feel like I was really unhelpful. To answer your question, I have nothing to do with Sally Chen and their magic, because that to me that's what it was. Because anytime I would see art, I feel like oh my gosh, how embarrassing for a writer. You're supposed to be articulate, and I would just be like, what?
I know.
I feel like my whole response every time was, and Brett was just like, and I was like, yeah, feedback. That's it.
Right. All the exclamation points.
Yeah,
you
totally.
Do you, Sally Chen. Keep rocking it.
And, Brett at one point said to me, we've done, this is a book with sparse words, with sparse text. And so we've really put a burden on Sally to tell the story. And I'm like, absolutely, absolutely. Mm. But Sally isn't, I could tell, on their website and everything, I could tell, really had that depth of emotion to be able to nail it, to be able to use pictures to tell a story. I knew, because you mentioned Julian is a mermaid, and I love that story. I feel like when we say so much about a story, sometimes, especially in stories like these, sometimes we say the wrong thing, or things that then become less universally true. And I really wanted it to just be an experience rather than language, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, Sally, wow. I feel like Sally's going to go on, because this is Sally's first book as well. And I just feel like they're going to go on to have a pretty amazing career, because it's just so I was just blown away. I don't know. I don't even know what I expected, but I know when I got that book in the mail, and just the brightness of the colors and the feelings that they were able to evoke, you know, with my sparse text, like truly, truly incredible. Yeah.
Nice work, Sally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like too, as writers, not only like I have also felt like you, where I'm like, ooh, that wasn't articulate at all, but that's all I've got. Like, just like I put on my caps lock, I get out my exclamation finger, and I'm just like,
totally. Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
But then also, you know, coming to the picture book table with sparse text, because we are trying to sort of evoke this experience, does, like you said, sort of put a burden on the illustrator. But that's also, in a sense, what we're like told to do. Yeah. But it's really hard to do as the writer who doesn't actually illustrate, right? Yeah. So I guess I'm just throwing that out there, because the story that you told with such sparse text was done so well. And then Sally came in with her magic, their magic, as you say. Yeah. Like the combination is like amazing. Well, that is really hard to do.
And the hilarious part of this is like, so this book, I originally wrote it as a chapter book series, kind of like a Meet Yasmin, you know, and
interesting.
It was set in the school. And I think that we submitted it around, and Alex and Brett connected about it. I also included this photo of me, you know, as a kid, like with my mullet, and basically like talked about my first like queer trauma at a roller skating rink wearing a tuxedo and being misgendered. And Brett read that and was like, this makes way more sense as a picture book. And the school setting is so binary. So it was an exclusive sub for Brett, and he basically came back to me and was like, can you write Julian as a mermaid in a roller rink? And I was like, well...
Like, I'm that like, was his actual note?
I'm like, probably not, but listen, I'm going to try, you know? Because I love that book so, so much. Like, totally love that book so much. But that was basically... And then, he just kind of took a chance on me because, you know, I'm like, I've learned so much more now, but... through that process, learned so much just about, like, you know, embarrassing things to say out loud on a podcast, you know, aimed toward writers about like formatting and like page turns and all these things, you know, but it was like that thing where Brett knew how personal this story was to me, and they're doing such amazing work in this space. And so, yeah, I just feel like, again, it's like, it was kind of like my ALA experience where I'm like, I'm not a person who like has a bucket list of like, I want to go to Japan, because again, introvert, don't love airplane travel. But this was the only thing on my bucket list was like, I would like to publish a story, which I've been trying to do since I was a kid. And at one point during my journey of like, you know, subbing out to agents and all these things, I totally was the type of person who like got a few rejections being like, you're a terrible writer. You should give up now. Like, just like eviscerated in like, because again, like, you know, I'm just like, I'll just try. And so it's like, dude, you sent me like 50 things now. Like, give up, stop bugging me. I know I'm fast at responding, but like, you should just quit. Like, this is never going to work for you. Like, literally, like a couple folks who like, you know, are pretty like well-known people, like definitely. And I didn't save them and paste them on the wall or anything because I don't need to. It's like I have those rejection letters like pinned up in my heart in the dark cavernous wall. Like, I don't, you know, totally. I don't need to look at them and like torture myself. But I'm like, they were right. You know, there was a grain of truth to that. Not the unkindness and the meanness of it, but like just like a lot of work to do. You know, so
which is, well, I was just gonna say that's a much kinder way to put it. Yeah. My gut reaction to that was like there is no place for that. Like, you don't have to be rude,
right?
This is like a whole different conversation. You know, like critiquing people's work is something I take a lot of like, not pride, but I'm very aware of how vulnerable that is.
Totally.
Because I'm a writer myself. So when I get somebody's work in front of me, like I am very aware to never be like, this is terrible. You need to do a lot, you know, like it's always like, look, these are the things that I think are great. Like there's always something good. Yeah. And then you can sort of, you know, build in like, you know, this needs a little work, like maybe work on the plot or the formatting or whatever. Totally. But like, I don't know, like, please, just as a PSA, like, don't be mean. Like, don't break anybody down like that. Like that bums me out so much on your behalf, and I'm so glad that you were like, look, I'm going to keep going anyway. So anyways, back to your...
Well, and my therapist's wife always says this rad thing to me in parenting, because, you know, I need these, like, really short... Like, I have a goldfish memory sometimes, you know, we have... So, but she'll say to me, Rushie, connect before you correct, because we are also creating our children's inner voices, right? And so if we connect with them before we correct them, instead of having this negative, which, you know, my dad was kind of perfectionist, and like, I definitely have like a more negative self-talk, you know, that's like some of my work to do. And so it is that thing about connect, you know, connect first. And you just find that like, it just, and then you're almost reminding yourself, like you're reconnecting with yourself instead of just being in your feels as an adult. When you aim to connect before you correct, you just find naturally that correction is softer because you're taking that time, right? It's almost like a breath or something else, you know? But anyway. Let's center
empathy as we're giving people feedback. Yeah, totally. I was just taking a note about this notion of sandwich feedback, which is something that I think about a great deal. This notion of say something nice, give the critical thing, and then say something nice. That's the essence of what you're saying. I love this connect before you correct mantra. It's a great way to encapsulate.
Yeah, I've never been the smartest person in the room, but the smartest thing I've ever done is just surrounding myself with these badass women who are just like, you know, you just soak it up like a sponge. Like I didn't get those tools necessarily, and they don't come to me naturally, but I love really smart, thoughtful people. And just, my community, I'm like, I don't get a free pass or an easy card, you know, because like that's the other thing is like I'll be the first person to tell you, do I nail other people's pronouns all the time? Absolutely not. I'm an 80s baby, you know, and
it's hard.
Just like my bestie Amy didn't want to go into a space in the Pacific Northwest where we grew up to be like, I'm Mormon, because then that became the center of conversation. You know, I don't always want to be that one person in a room to talk about pronouns. Like it's not always the conversation I want to have. Sometimes I just want to be like the weird person in the corner eating a cookie and like being antisocial, right? Like having a one-on-one convo with someone, you know, that's meaningful, that isn't necessarily about anything gender related or queer related. It's just like being people and parents in the world, or like just adults, you know, adulting. Like, I don't know. It's like not
you don't
always
have to be
and that's the hard thing
like
about
the
like
spokesperson.
Yeah. And like, even in my day job or whatever, it's like, I don't always want to lead with my pronouns only because I kind of deal with the general public, and it feels like I'm front facing, like I feel vulnerable, you know, and it's not always a conversation or an argument that I'm up for, that I want to have, you know? So
it's exhausting, right? Like that's a lot to put on yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you're like, I just want to show up in the world and be a person. Yeah. Which is sort of the basis of this whole conversation.
Right? Yeah.
Just let everybody just be.
Totally.
Like, just, you know, it doesn't have to be a whole,
Yeah. And it's amazing that feels like a big ask, you know? Like it's just, it's like, when did that become such a big ask? And I look forward to the time where we go back to it just feeling like, that's just a regular ask. That's not a special latte, you know, with like a long list on the side. That's like drip coffee, you know? And maybe I want
like a black coffee.
Cream. No biggie.
Totally.
No, it's not a thing.
Maybe in late January, we can start to get back to that.
Yeah. I like it.
Yes.
Maybe after some political processes.
Totally. I know. Fingers, toes, crossed.
Right? My gosh.
I know.
Oh, God.
Rushie, before we let you go, because the hour has like evaporated. Like this has been fascinating and so like delightful and enjoyable. And I'm so glad you came on. Like the minute I like heard you talk at ALA, I was like, oh my gosh, like I love their vibe and like everything about them, and just like your book, and just I was like, we should definitely like talk more. So I'm so glad this worked out. But I did want to say, if you have anything you want to tell the audience, like where to find you or where to look for your books, or if you have anything coming out, like, you know, make sure to plug that.
People to know about.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right. Any openings between 18th and...
That is hilarious. Yeah. I am so bad at the internet. I mean, Brenna, you know, when you were like, what is your Twitter handle? And I was like, no, I just have this really weird Gmail address. And you're like looking at me like, what is wrong with you? You know?
But it's the best Gmail address. I will not shout it out on the podcast because you might get a ton of emails, but it is one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do have a very bad website. You know, Agent Alex is very patient with me because someday I'll get better at the internet, but I'm just really, really bad at it. So, you know, I mean, like...
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not, this is why I need friends like Vicki, because, she's like a million times better at it than me. Yeah, she's just like, dude, come on, get with the times.
There's room for people who are bad at the internet at the table. Yeah. You are welcome.
Thank you, Brenna. I appreciate that. I know. Yeah, I know. I was so glad to have met you. I mean, I knew who you were, like when you came up, and like we're talking.
You
to
did?
Andrew. Oh yeah. I mean, I've listened to the podcast. Like I had like a weird brain for this.
Brenna.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the best compliment I've gotten all day. Like, it's very cool when people are like, no, like, I know who you are. I'm like, you do? Like, how would, like, totally. Why would you? Yeah. But that's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I mean, again, thank you for coming on. This has been awesome. I loved every piece of it.